I'm going to get some postcards and stuff to send to my friends who hosted me in Tokyo because, you know, I think they don't have a roundup and stuff. Well, I'm sure they say, well, we got cowboys, but we call them samurai. Okay, I guess you got that, but it's really quite a difference. As you know, and as I said, if you return to your so-called ancestral homeland, you probably have the same feeling that, I guess we're kind of a young nation and we're still in flux. You know, we're not all set down in concrete and things are continually changing. Just tonight over dinner, we were talking about Shoni Schimmel and women's basketball and how in my day, women didn't play sports, you know? I'm not all that old. And then for a while, women were playing basketball, but it was only half court and they could only dribble twice. I mean, it was like, ooh, this isn't that long, but boy, things have, you know, isn't that wonderful that things have really changed? And so, boy, that makes you feel good. Since I did go to Japan, I thought I'd bring you back a little souvenir. I had purchased a book several months ago from a friend in England. It was an English publisher, and I didn't know anything about this person. It turned out that this poet, Kenji Miyazawa, is one of Japan's most famous and best-loved poems. He was a young person in his 30s when he died of tuberculosis, and he lived a very, very simple kind of life, and maybe that's why the people revere him. Somewhat similar to maybe why people celebrate the poetry of William Stafford. You know, he had these kind of regular person qualities about him. He wasn't just off somewhere in the clouds. And so, since I knew the poetry of Kenji Miyazawa, I thought, all right, I'll present some to the Japanese public, but I'll read it in English translation. And yeah, they appreciated it. So his most famous poem is called Strong in the Rain. Strong in the rain, strong in the wind, strong against summer heat and snow. He is healthy and robust, free from desire. He never loses his temper, nor the quiet smile on his lips. He eats a little of unpolished rice and a few vegetables a day. He does not consider himself in whatever occurs. His understanding comes from observation and experience. And he never loses sight of things. He lives in a little thatched roof hut in a field in the shadows of a pine tree grove. If there is a sick child in the east, he goes there to nurse the child. If there's a tired mother in the west, he goes to her and carries her sheaves. If someone is near death in the south, he goes and says, don't be afraid. If there are strife and lawsuits in the north, he demands that the people put an end to their pettiness. He weeps at the time of drought. He plods about at a loss during the cold summer. Everyone calls him blockhead. No one sings his praises or takes him to heart. That is the kind of person I want to be. And I think we're like the Japanese people. We could admire someone like that, you know, someone who's humble and with a lot of heart, and who doesn't maybe get a lot of or want a lot of credit and kudos for that, you know. So maybe we should just go around calling each other blockhead. Blockhead. I take back all the good things I said about you blockheads. I'll just do a couple of more things because I want to give the time to listen to what you have to say. What are the poems that you're going to read? But this idea of Japan has to do with one of the themes of my life. You know, we're all born with different themes in our lives, and just my ancestry is one. And you have your own ancestry, whatever it is, you know. Most of you of your generation, maybe you were born not so much in Oregon, but maybe in the Midwest, and you came out here. That's one of your themes. It's sitting right back here in your background. And then you have other themes, as I was talking about women's basketball. The women in here have a women's theme. The guys, not so much. You know what I mean? Guys, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We've always been the same. And so, but you got other themes like maybe war or the service or your job or your religion, your spirituality, one thing. You all have your themes. And so myself, when I write, it's usually something that's touched me that has to do with one of my themes, one of my aspects of life. So one of the things about my life is that in my day, jazz was very popular. And when I was in high school, there was a thing started called West Coast Jazz, and it seems like jazz was really big. And I think in the so-called swing era, which was jazz, that was also America's music. It was pretty much jazz that they were playing, Benny Goodman and Glenn Miller. And so I naturally thought, well, maybe I want to become a jazz musician. So I started to study the string bass. But at the same time, I was going to college, and then what happened to me was one of my teachers took me aside and said, I like what you're writing. Why don't you think about doing some writing? So I said, oh, okay. So I went with that. And when I reflect back on things like that, this is another theme for me, and I'm sure you could share this one too. You're going on in life, maybe you're uncertain, and then something happens, or you meet someone, and then you get a direction, you see? For instance, when I was put into the internment camps as a child, I felt very lost because I didn't know what I was doing there. I was 4 years old, and I had lost my house, I lost my dog, and lost my friends in the neighborhood, and I'm living in the fairgrounds. And even if someone tried to explain it to me, I wouldn't understand. You see, so, well, you're here because America's at war with Japan, you see. And it didn't make any sense to me. So I realized after that life consists of sometimes you're going along and you're lost, and then you're found. And there's always something found, So you may lose the religion, you may lose the job, but something else always takes its place. You might lose the relationship, but